Hey guitar players, and welcome back to the Guitar in a Year Beginner to Intermediate. This is lesson number 34, and what you just heard is one of the duets that we're going to be working on. This is going to be on pages 10 and 11 of Modern Method, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I recorded both parts and mixed them together, and this is a really good way for you to work on not only your recording techniques, but also playing guitar parts with yourself. If you have another friend or somebody else that's learning the guitar, it can be a fun thing to work with them as well. But we're going to be getting to that duet a little bit later. I wanted to start off this lesson by just talking about a brand new picking exercise. So last week we did learn pattern 3 of the C major scale up here at the 12th fret. And one of my favorite picking exercises uses this pattern. And we're going to be doing a descending group of 4s starting at the top. So let me show you what that means. Notice I'm also playing on the bridge pickup. A lot of times if you play on the neck pickup when you're working on picking exercises, it can kind of muddy up your tone and you don't get a clear pick attack. So if you're working on your picking, you want it to be as bright as possible. I even went to the extreme when I was in college by putting the treble on 10 on a little solid state amp and using the bridge pickup with no reverb, no overdrive, or anything like that. We used to call that ultimate technique settings. If you play worse on the bridge pickup with the treble on 10, it's not the bridge pickup with the treble on 10. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Okay. So I'm starting off with, we're going to adhere to the fingering, by the way, all the way down. I'm starting off with the pinky on the top string. And I'm playing 4 notes descending. So this is going to be 16th notes. Now remember, 8th notes is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and the triplet is going to be triplet, triplet, triplet. But 16th notes is going to be 1 E and so if I'm playing this descending, 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and okay? Now, just like everything else, the tablature and everything is going to be over on Patreon, so if you want a copy of that, just head on over there. That information is in the description below. All right, so I'm starting off on G, and I'm going to play descending 4 notes, so G, F, E, and D. Then I'm going to go to F, and I'm going to descend by 4 notes, F, E, D, C. So you can kind of see where this pattern is going. It's G, descend on 4 notes, F, descend on 4 notes, E, descend on 4 notes, D, descend on 4 notes, C, descend on 4 notes, all the way down. Okay? So it kind of sounds like this. And so we're going to go all the way to the bottom. So let's take a look at that. I have my metronome set at 82 beats per minute right now. So let's see what that would sound like. So obviously, I don't want you to do it that fast right away, but it's something that you can work up to. And definitely don't start off with an 8th note and try to turn it into 16ths. You really have to hear the subdivisions of this. 16th note playing is a big part of lead guitar later on and just playing melodies in general. Let's maybe walk it down to 60 and see where we feel there. For some of you, that might be a lot more manageable, and for some of you, you may have to work this up out of time first and then start using the metronome. As we get closer to the end of the year and definitely into the intermediate course, we're going to be having a different technique challenge every single week. Everything from picking exercises to even doing things like harp harmonics and all sorts of other things that are going to come in that second year. But at this point, we're going to just introduce a picking pattern using one of the patterns that we just learned. Really, we learned this many weeks ago in the open position, correct? Now, when I take this pattern as a picking exercise on my daily practice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it once in the key of C, and then I'm going to cycle for this thing around the neck. So just to give you a feeling of what that kind of looks like, I'll put it back up to that 80. I'm going to play it in C, then F, then B flat. So let's try this. 1E and a 2E and a 3E. So this is B flat. And I would go around the complete cycle 4 using that. That way I have my fingers on every single key that I could possibly play, and it's a really good way to kind of look ahead. And the goal is, of course, to get to the very end. I'll usually set my metronome up, not at the speed I last ended at, but somewhere that's a comfortable start. So let's just say that my last high speed was 100 beats per minute with 16th notes. I'll probably back it off to about 85 or 90 to start. That way I can comfortably accelerate up to my high tempo and hopefully have a few extra minutes to work on possibly breaking that record. And so with the daily practice like this, maybe I'll use a picking exercise for a couple of months. And I'll just, in my journal, every single day, I'll be writing down exactly how I felt about that, what the tempos were, and you can start noticing some trends in your playing. Was there a span of time when you were a little bit slower? It could be a lot of stuff. This is how I started noticing things, like strap height, like using different guitars, like even if you use the same pick, let's say you're using a Fender Medium, but one day you realize that I can't even get close to that 100. I'm at like 92 and I'm topping out. What could possibly be the problem? Did I have too much Alfredo last night or something? And then you find out that your pick is warped. I've told you guys this before, but like if you have a pack of Fender Medium picks, half of them are warped this way, half of them are warped this way. So look at the pick and it's like, oh my gosh, the tool that I'm using to actually do this very intricate picking pattern is actually faulty. So you throw the pick away, grab another one. That's one of the reasons why sometimes I really enjoy using these blue chip picks, because not only are they indestructible, but they're exactly the same from pack to pack, and they last for years without wearing out. So something to think about. I still plan on doing a pick video relatively soon. We'll see what happens. Every time I start working on that, it ends up taking a lot more time than I would like. Okay, so this is our picking pattern for today. One thing that I do want to say, because I've gotten some questions about this, is tutorials for songs. So I'm basically going to be working on one beginner to intermediate level tutorial a week and one advanced tutorial a week. So if you go over to Patreon, you can see those videos there. Occasionally, depending on copyright and all that other stuff, I will put them out on YouTube. But if you're one of those people that's going through the course and you're like, where's all the songs? We're doing those over on Patreon. Obviously, with the copyright stuff, you can't be doing a whole bunch of tutorials on YouTube. So when it comes to rhythm guitar studies, which we're going to be really dialing in starting after week 40, we're going to start working a lot on our time, our groove, and playing chords to a click and that type of thing. We're getting there. So we just have to do everything in the correct order and, don't miss anything. So, in fact, one of the things we'll talk about today is rhythm accompaniment at the bottom of page 11 in Modern Method. Okay, so if you have any questions about the triad stuff from last week, put those in the comments below. I'd love to hear any of your comments about that stuff, how it's going. I know for a lot of you, you're just kind of waiting to see that stuff kind of come out in your playing. And trust me, it will. I gave you a few examples last week of how those triads work in songs. In fact, the advanced tutorial last week, that I did on Patreon of Larry Carlton's Kid Charlemagne solo is just jam-packed with triads. And so it's one of those things where you start working on these triadic ideas as a beginner, and then they come to fruition later on. It's just kind of believing in the process and doing that. You don't want to get to a higher level and then not know something very basic like triads, because then you're kind of at an impasse until you figure it out. And you don't want to wait to learn some of your favorite solos until you get some of the basics down. The whole reason for the course, right? Okay. Well, today we are going to be learning a new pattern. We're going to be learning a C major pattern 4. So as you recall, when we were doing pattern 1, we were playing C major, starting at the 8th fret, which is our note C, and we were going all the way up to the 12th fret. We then incorporated pattern 2 into the mix. That starts at D and goes all the way up to the F there, and then we had our pattern 3, which we just kind of discussed over that picking pattern going all the way up to the 15th fret. Now, of course, we have that at the open position. We'll be using that today for our modern method, duet, and rhythm accompaniment exercise. But today we're going to talk about pattern 4. So pattern 4 looks exactly like pattern 1 except for one note. So you start noticing a lot of things kind of repeat at this point. So if you understand the fingering of pattern 1, which was 1 2 4 1 2 4 1 2 4 1 2 4 2 4 1 2 4, pattern 4 looks very similar. The 4th note goes up 1 fret. Everything else is the same. So if I started at the 1st fret for the note F and I played what would be pattern 1, I would get the F major scale. But we need F major in the key of C. We'll talk about how that works later. So 1, 2, 3, that's the 4th note. It goes up by a fret, okay? And this is because we don't want B flat in the key of C. We need the note B in the key of C, right? So F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Normally that note would have been here. That would have given us B flat, so we need B natural, C, D, E, F, G, A, okay? So just like all the other patterns, what I'd like you to do is maybe start off with just a couple notes and start incorporating some of the other strings. This process could take you 15 to 20 minutes to get really comfortable with a new pattern. Let it take what it takes. Notice that I'm doing kind of sequences. I'm not just playing straight up and down. A lot of intermediate students come to me because they're like, I just sound like I'm playing scales when I'm doing a solo. Well, that's because you're just going up and down the pattern. So we have to kind of think of ways to play things without just, playing it up and down. Okay, so just for practicing purposes here, I'm going to give us a metronome at 60, and I'm going to play up and down this pattern in 8th notes twice. Then I'm going to play up and down this pattern in triplets twice. And then I'm going to play up and down this pattern in 16ths twice. 1, 2, 3, 4. Triplets. Sixteenths. 2, 3, 4. All right, so at this point too, I want you to be reviewing your patterns, the other 3 patterns that we had been doing. We're going to start moving these to the other keys once we kind of get C major put together. And I'll show you how to do that when that time comes. All right, so let's take a look at page 10 of Modern Method. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have, again, a first guitar and a second guitar part. Thankfully, at this point, there's no new information that I have to give you. We should be fairly comfortable with all these triads. I want you to continue to try and call them out when you see them, meaning the first triad, as we see at the top of page 10, it's a C major in first inversion because the E is in the bass. Okay? Now, that's that same movable triad from our triad section, right? So all these things kind of work together. If I learn that D triad, which is first inversion D triad on strings 2 through 4, if I were to lower that, you get the exact same thing that we're looking at right now in C. Now, of course, that's kind of awkward to have that first finger hand hanging out, so we play it like that, and of course, it's part of this chord. All right, so I'm going to kind of walk you through the first guitar part here. We have a C major in first inversion, and then we're going to go into a G7, and that's going to be in third inversion because the 7th's in the bass. And then we're going to C, that's in second inversion. And we're going to go to an F chord, and that's going to be in first inversion. Remember our little movable shape on the top 3 strings? That's that thing. And we're going to go to G, G7, and then a little tiny dyad. A dyad is kind of like a 2-note chord that is representing the full chord. That's the F and A, which is giving us basically an F major sound. And then notice that if we remove that first finger and add those other 2 notes in, we're getting that G7 sound again. Full F chord, building that more expanded G7. Measure 8 is another one of those chords. And then you have to play notes right away. So remember how we practiced those from before. Remember, don't just start at the top of these etudes and duets and stuff and just try and read all the way down. You need to kind of cycle some of these licks and phrases a couple of times. I call it looping, So you're just going to loop it and use the gatekeeper method, meaning I'm not going to move on to the next measure until I have that one basically under my fingers. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something that you can recreate with a general level of accuracy, okay? Moving on to the third system, we have again a C in first inversion. And it kind of repeats again too, right? So we have G7 again. Then we got our C. That's our second inversion triad. Back to our first inversion of the F chord. G's again, back to that dyad. There's our G7. Then we have the F, G7. This time we're walking down. Now at the bottom of the page, we're getting into single notes. Another little sequence. Jump. Top of page 11. More dyads. So these dyads are going to be giving us a certain flavor of each chord. We have F, open G, and then the top part of an F chord. Another F, dyad, G7, with B on top that time. Back to C in first inversion, back to our G7s, back to our Cs, and an F. Last line, G, G7, there's my F, there's a G again, F, there's my G7 with D on top, and finally ending on C. So there's nothing on here that you haven't seen before, it's just putting it together. Working on the second guitar part, we start off with single note lines. You could probably call this the melody. At this point, we should be fairly comfortable being able to play single note lines and reading them in time, okay? If not, just keep working on it. Go all the way back to page 4. By now, you're probably noticing that each page is feeling a little bit more comfortable. So that's going to be something that we just work on day after day. I can tell you there was times after college where I Didn't work on my music reading as much. It's definitely a skill that will leave you if you're not playing it every day. And, developing a sight reading, proficiency is more than just like, you can read stuff. I mean, it gives you, like we've talked about before, your note recognition all over the fingerboard. It allows you to see structures more accurately, and it opens up this whole new world of music that maybe you weren't able to read before. I've had a lot of guitar players come to me and be like, hey, there's a song that I wanted to learn. I looked it up online. Maybe it was like a movie score or a melody to a TV theme. Christmas songs is a huge one. If you want to read Christmas songs this winter, you're absolutely going to need to know how to read music. Most of that stuff is not in tab, just to let you know. Okay, so we're going to be on the third system here. More single note lines. We've now used the whole top of the string there. Okay, last line of the page 10. Going to those diodes again. F, G, top part of an F. Little small G7, little small G, little small C, top of page 11. Little descending G line, back to C. Kind of a reprise of the melody there, right? Okay, so I was, putting the two parts together in that video that you saw at the beginning of the lesson today, and really that only took about 10 minutes to do that. So as soon as you work this thing up to a point where you're like, yeah, I can play part 1, and then I can play part 2, try connecting them, meaning put the metronome on wherever you're at, and get to the bottom of page 11, where you're done with your first guitar, and immediately go into second guitar. Once you're able to play both parts accurately as one complete performance, then I would say it's time to whip out your phone and record part 1, record part 2 separately, obviously with a click, and then you can go into iMovie or any video editing software and splice them together, and then you can kind of see your duet come to life. Okay, let's talk about the bottom of page 11. So this is rhythm accompaniment. There is an awful lot of rhythm guitar studies in this book, and we're going to be talking about the very first one today. So we're starting off with a C chord, and this is the majority of that open C chord, just minus that bass note, okay? And so those slashes there, you're going to be strumming on each one of those lines. So fairly self-explanatory, but C, 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 C. The only difference is that that little comma that you see there is going to be where you are going to mute with the right hand. Now I kind of mute with both hands when I do that. I kind of release pressure, and so if you look at the bottom there, it says a better rhythmic pulse is produced if you relax left-hand pressure at these points. So you have options for muting. I find if I don't use the right hand, though, you hear that. So I don't want that extra ring. So I'm kind of muting with both hands. Okay? Now the F chord, that's just starting on the D string. Now here's a C chord that we haven't talked about very much. That's a C with the G on top. Now, because a C major chord is C, E, and G, if I add another G somewhere or another E somewhere, it doesn't change the fact that it's a C chord. I don't have to call it anything new. It's C. It's just that's a C, that's a C, this is a C, that's a C, this is a C, that's a C, this is a C, that's a C. They're all C chords because the only thing in that chord is C, E, and G. So on that measure 3, and then we're going to go to G7 in the fourth measure. It looks like a pretty thick stacked chord, but it's just a one finger thing. D, G, B, and F on top. Back to C, second system. Going to F. That's that C with the G on top. Okay, so I'm going to put the metronome on. Let's try, I don't know, let's try 90. Let's be a little bit daring today. And I'm going to play through the bottom of page 11, rhythm accompaniment with the metronome set at 90. 2, 3, 4. Now, one thing I do want to say about stuff like this, if you are attempting songs that are more challenging than this, but you can't get this perfectly, it's something to take a look at, okay? There's a lot of songs out there that you could be playing right now, and I'm sure a lot of you are. But I want you to think about this. If you're struggling with one of them, okay, so let's just say that you can't figure out why, you've been working on the song for 2 or 3 weeks, it's not getting any better, and then you're challenged with something like this, like the bottom of page 11, and you cannot get through it without a perfect performance. Did you hear how easy that was, or how easy it sounded? So I always ask myself these questions. If I can't do this, what business do I have playing X? And it's really something to think about. You know, you wouldn't expect your child, if they can't, do multiplication, to be able to do calculus, right? And so it's really something to think about. All the stuff that's in this book, all the stuff that we've been talking about in the course, is really all designed to make sure that we don't leave anything behind, that we're not progressing too fast. Because again, like I've said so many times, the vast majority of my students have been intermediate players that are stuck. And in every case, it's always because they went ahead a little too fast, or they got bored with something and they're like, you know what, I deserve a treat. I'm going to learn X song or something like that. And that's all well and good, but if you're asking yourself why you can't play that, try making sure that you can do these simple things perfectly. And so I always told myself that, do the simple stuff perfectly, and then the hard stuff will be a little bit easier. You're going to gradually grow your proficiency level to a point where you have full freedom to play the guitar and choose any song that you want to learn. That's the goal. We just need to make sure that we do everything in the right order. All right, well, if you have any questions about today's lesson, please put them in the comments below, or you can reach out to me over on Patreon. I know this has been a bit of a longer lesson, but that is perfectly okay. Next week, we're going to be taking a look at pattern 5, moving ahead in modern method. We're going to be talking about some more phrases in C major and connecting those patterns, and I'll give you another brand new exercise. So I hope you have an excellent week. Reach out if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next Guitar in a Year video. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Peace.